What's up? What's up? What's up, family? Welcome to another episode of Apostolic Insight. I am so excited to be here with you tonight. I am looking forward to what we're going to share because we're going to be diving into something that I think is a very serious matter. And it's something that we've got to address in our church. And it just happens to be shift number 6 of our 7 shifts that are going to hit the church, but specifically hit the Black church. Before we get started, I want you to do me a couple of favors. Number one, I want you to jump in the chat and let me know who you are and where you're watching from. Just drop the name of your church, your city, and state. We have seen people from all across the U.S. be a part of this, and we are so grateful. I am grateful for your support and just for your willingness to be a part and to heed the call to come and be a part of what it is that God is doing through this Tuesday night show. Also, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click share. If you're on YouTube, I want you to hit that share link and I want you to text it to your team. Text it to some people you know, particularly if you are a pastor or a senior leader of a church. Trust me, you're going to want your team here tonight because what I'm going to be sharing tonight is really going to be coming, yes, to you as a pastor and your perspective, but it's really going to be eye-opening for those who serve with you. So text it to your team, text it to your congregation, anybody that you want to have insight on what it means to walk alongside you and to serve well and to understand your role and your task. You want to go ahead and grab that link and text it to them right now. Look, if you're on Facebook, you can just click share. You can tag some people that you know need to be a part, and you can invite them to come in. Tonight, we're going to be going into shift number 6. And if you remember, shift number 6 was going to be the rise of coaches and consultants. And I want to dive into it this way by talking about the fact that we must stop expecting our pastors to do everything. We got to stop expecting our pastors to do everything. And that's what we're going to be diving into tonight. That's what we're going to be talking about tonight. Now, I want to jump into this, and I want to preface this with something that I think is very important. And I want to say something. And as I say this, I want you to understand that I'm saying it in love, that I'm saying it out of a sense of concern. But we've got to stop expecting our pastors to be everything. We no longer live in the era where pastor was this blanket statement and blanket title, whereby this leader had to be everything and anything necessary. And we came into this era, but we've got to stop expecting our pastors to be our pastor, our preacher, our counselor, our strategist, our social media manager, the marriage therapist, the youth director, the fundraiser, the IT department, and our friend all in one person. We have got to move out of that era. We've got to learn that this is not the biblical model. It's not the biblical model. All right, come on, help me preach right there. Somebody jump in the chat and say that is not the biblical model. It's just not. It's not the biblical model. And so one of the things that we've got to do is that we've got to rediscover God's model for ministry. God gave us a very clear model for ministry. It was a very pointed model for ministry, a very effective model for ministry. But we have got to return to God's model. And a part of that is that we've got to come to the place where we stop expecting our pastors to be everything. I think sometimes we misinterpret this idea that Paul was all things to all men that some might be saved. He did not say I was doing this because I was the only one who could carry stuff in the church. Paul was talking about when he was going into these various cultures and places, he was able to be flexible on the things that did not affect his salvation for the sake of other people. He was not talking about leadership. As a matter of fact, the New Testament shows us a completely different model for leadership. It shows us something different. And so I want to start here because tonight I really want you to engage with me. I want us to talk and I want to hear from you. And one of the things that I want to hear, that I want to think about is this. What's one role that your pastor or you are currently filling that has absolutely nothing to do with preaching and prayer? I want us to share in the chat. What's some of the things that you're carrying that you know, man, I need somebody else to carry this? What's one thing that you see your senior leader carrying and you know they are not the person who is best equipped to do this. All right, I want you to take a moment and I want you to jump in the chat and I want you to answer that question. What is one thing that you as a pastor or your pastor is doing that you know does not have anything to do with preaching and prayer? I want you to drop that in the chat. Drop it in the chat. We're going to dive into that tonight. And I want to hear your responses. Tonight, I really want you to help me in uncovering how we got to where we are and how we're going to correct it. So let's talk about it. As I said before, we've got to stop expecting our pastors to be everything. We've got to stop expecting them to be everything. Really, we live in an era where there are so many different facets that we need more hands to the plow to help us do and to execute the ministry that God has called us to. And so I want you to answer that question. When you think about your pastor, what's something that they're carrying that you know does not have anything to do with preaching and prayer? Let's continue on. Here is what's really happening in the church. There is a crushing weight of unrealistic expectations. We are fighting against the crushing weight of unrealistic expectations. All right. What are those unrealistic expectations? Number one, we want our pastors to preach dynamic sermons. And by dynamic, I mean that those messages hit us and meet us where we are. We don't want to go to church and get a message where we can tell that our pastors have not studied, have not prepared. And to prepare a strong message, it takes time in the presence of God. It takes time in the word of God. It takes time of study. It takes a lifetime of study, not just a moment. When you see a pastor who is well skilled at preaching and teaching the word of God, one of the things that I can guarantee you is that they have invested time and energy and money and resources to spending time with God over a long period of time. It's not a one-time thing. It's a thing that's been happening for a long time. And we want dynamic messages, but here's a challenge. Dynamic messages take time to build. It takes time to let it settle in your spirit. It takes time to get clear on what God is saying and doing. It takes time. And so now we want them to teach biblical messages. But then number two, we want them to lead ministry. And I put here, we want them to lead every ministry. And some of you are saying, no, we got ministry leaders. But here's the problem. When you can assign ministry leaders and they still have to come back to you for every single detail, even though you're not physically doing the work, you're mentally still leading the ministry. All right. And so sometimes we have these cultures where, yes, there's a person in the position, but if the person is not thinking about ministry away from the church, if they walk out of the doors of the church and leave the ministry at the church and they go home and they see ministry like a job, where you see it like, man, once I leave here, I'm going home to my family. I ain't taking this home with me. If that's a leader's approach to ministry, the senior pastor is still carrying it. And they may not say they're carrying it. You may not know it, but they're still carrying it. Number three, we also, one of the unrealistic weights is now we want them to add to that, managing the facilities and the financing. I'm managing all these different parts. I'm making sure the facility is taken care of, right? I'm managing it because if we walk in and we see issues in the church, is there somebody else who's looking at that and saying, hey, we need to do something about this? Or do we just wait for pastor to see it? And even when we do see it, do we solve it? Or do we take that to pastor for them to fix it too? All right. We've got to understand that these are some of the unrealistic expectations. Finances, not just managing finances, but raising finances, being responsible for finances. All right. That's one of the mistakes that we're making, is that we're putting this unrealistic expectation on our leaders. Handling HR issues. Oh my goodness. Handling HR issues is that if any kind of disagreement break out, although we should be a team of mature believers, it often still comes down to the leader to go in and tackle it. Right? If we don't have leaders around a pastor, around our senior leaders who are thinking about being proactive and helping to bring peace and solve challenges, we miss it. And so we're putting all these unrealistic expectations. Now we want them to do the marketing, right? Because they got to do the social media, because the church goes and the church posts events that are coming. But does a leadership team go and share it? I'll never forget, years ago, we were doing an event, and I said to our team, I said, hey, everybody, I want y'all to do me a favor. I want y'all to grab the flyer, and I want you to go make it your profile picture for the next week. And so just help us get the word out, share the flyer, invite people, so on and so on. And I happen to have a leader who was like, nah, I'm not doing that. You know, I don't really want my name on this and so on and so on. I don't want to do this. And I said, okay, no problem. I understand. God bless you. May the Lord watch between me and thee while we are absent. Listen, I knew right then it was time to break up. It was time to break up. We on different pages. If you just say, hey, look, I don't use my social media that way, that's your prerogative. But when you tell me you don't want to be associated publicly with something that you're telling me you want to be locked in with privately, we got a problem. We got a problem. And so what ends up happening is the senior leaders end up being the ones who are sharing and promoting and telling, trying to manage technology, unrealistic expectations. Counseling. Now, keep in mind, any one of these things is not unrealistic. What's unrealistic is all this stuff stacking up. So now let's put counseling on top of there. When you're going through a storm, you need somebody that you can go talk to. And what most people don't realize is that there is a subgroup of people who only call a pastor their pastor when they're in trouble. I know I'm going to get some amens on this one. There's a subgroup of people who only call pastor their pastor when they're in trouble. So when things are going well, they good, they got it, they don't show up, they don't come, they don't serve, they don't give. But when they get in trouble, they know the pastor with the good heart who's going to be there to counsel them through. They will watch the internet pastor. They'll share the service from the internet pastor. They will give money to the internet pastor. But when they're going through the thick of it, they run to the person they can touch. And they expect a counselor. They expect somebody who can be there, who can minister to them, who can answer their questions, who can be there to help deal with what they're going through. I know I'm talking tonight. And then we want our pastors to attend all the things that are happening. Not just the things that are happening in the church, but the things that are happening in our lives. These are unrealistic expectations. And here's what it leads to. When we have these unrealistic expectations on our leaders, it leads to burnout and emotional exhaustion. See, we talk about pastors who burn out physically, but we don't talk enough about emotional exhaustion, where you just emotionally tired. And a lot of times pastors are walking around emotionally tired from stuff that don't have nothing to do with them. They carry in people stuff. That's why Aaron's with the Old Testament picture of the high priest. The Old Testament picture of the high priest was two things. You had one person who showed up when they went before God, and that same person looked completely different when he went before the people. When he went before the people, he looked immaculate. He looked so good, man. Aaron was out there. He had on the mitre, and he had on all the stones. He had the breastplate. He was wearing the 12 tribes on his heart. He had the pomegranates and the bells and the cords. And he had all this regalia because when he walked among the people, his task was to represent God. And so he looked well put together. He looked good. You could see all the things and all the revelation that was in his garments. But when he went before God, all of that came off, and all he had on was a plain linen suit. Because when he came before God, he represented man. He represented man in all of his humility and sin and brokenness. And what we sometimes miss is that so much of the exhaustion that our leaders carry is because when you see a congregation, if you see a church of 20 people, those are 20 people who have one pastor. And when things come about in their life, whether they talk about it or not, or whether the Spirit just reveals it to the pastor, or whether the pastor is the standard that the Lord has raised to block the flood that the enemy is trying to send into your life. Whatever the case may be, they're wearing it. And this is what happens when we put these unrealistic expectations. We have leaders who deal with burnout and emotional exhaustion. Not only that, but we start to see an increase in pastoral resignations. Pastors are resigning and retiring at an alarming rate. And some of them are not doing it because their time is up and they're no longer capable. They're doing it because they're carrying too much. We live in a season of ministry where people want more from their leaders without bringing more to their leaders. Oh my goodness. I think I need to say that again. We are living in a time and a season where people want more from their leaders without bringing more to their leaders. And we're seeing so many leaders graciously bow out and say, maybe it's just me. And I want to say to somebody tonight, it's not just you. It's not just you. There is some support you need. You need some help. You need to make sure you're not walking this thing by yourself. And then here's one of the third thing that I'll mention that I think is another result of these unrealistic expectations. Y'all know we have to set the foundation. Another result of these unrealistic expectations is that leaders begin to neglect their primary calling. And so the thing that brings them the most joy in ministry, many times they leak away from it because their time and energy is zapped with all the other things that other people could be helping to carry. And here's my thing. I've said this over and over again. I personally don't believe burnout comes when you're just tired. I don't believe that's what burnout is, right? And my definition of burnout was developed from biblical study, from seminary. I went to seminary. I have a master's degree in pastoral counseling and personal experience. And in my personal experience and in my study, in seasons of my own life when burnout came, it wasn't because I was tired or only because I had too much on my plate. I believe burnout comes when I'm tired and I can't see a way out. That's what spurs burnout. That last part, it's when I cannot see a reality where this thing is going to be different, where I've exhausted all the things I know how to do, where I've exhausted all the things that I have, where I've exhausted all the things I feel like the Lord has shared with me. And there is some component of what I'm doing that is out of my control. I've tried to get help. I've tried to take the next steps. I've invited, I've shared, and it's not moving. And I can't see how we're going to get to the other side. That's one of the times when burnout comes. And one of the things that I think lends most leaders to getting to that point is when you stop having time for vision and spiritual leadership. When you stop having time to just sit and dream, when you stop having time to just sit down and let the Holy Spirit just minister to you, not because you have an agenda or something you want and something that needs to happen, but when your mind can be at peace and you can just say, Lord, I'm grateful for where we are. I'm grateful for what you've done. I'm grateful for how things are going. I just want you to just show me. Like for me, if you could see, you can't see it right now, but if you could see my office, here in my office, I always got to have a whiteboard. I keep a whiteboard in my office. And sometimes I even get a whiteboard. I would even go to the teacher supply store and get the paper you can put on the wall that's like sticky dry erase. And I have to just write things out. As a matter of fact, I'm getting ready to fill my wall with paper that are goals and metrics and vision and things that the Lord has put in my heart. Because sometimes when you get it out, it just begins to reset you a little bit. And so I'm getting ready to fill my office because I've got to be able to dream again. And when you develop the ability to dream again, you'll see your fire start to come back. But in order to dream about the future, the present has to get on solid ground. And when we have unrealistic expectations of our leaders, they struggle to live in the future because the present is so heavy. And we've got to grab that. So one of the things that I want to say, and that we've got to correct this, is that somewhere, somehow, we have built systems that demand pastors be superheroes and then we wonder why they collapse. We've built a system that demands that our pastors be superheroes, and then we get shocked when they collapse. Again, going back to what I said in the beginning, that is not God's blueprint for ministry. All right, so I want to ask you another question. Here's my second question. Why do you think so many churches still operate like ministry is a one-person job? I want you to let me know in the chat. Drop your answer in the chat, and I want to hear from you. All right, I want to hear from you. Some of you, I'm going to come and I'm going to pull your answers and your responses. But why do you think so many operate like it's a one-person job? Why do we do that? All right. Going back to my previous question, I see a couple of things. We talked about things that you are doing that you shouldn't be doing. All right. I see a couple of things. I see transportation. Right. So picking up people, taking them here, moving stuff around. Absolutely. Cleaning. Awesome. That's another good one. Let me come over here to my other page. I just saw another one. I lost it, but I'll find it back here in a second. But there are so many things that we are carrying that we don't need to be carrying. And my admonition to you is to find a way, somehow, some way, to put it down. Somehow, some way, put it down. All right, and we're going to work on that. I'm going to help you with that because I understand that that's easier said than done. All right, so I'm going to come alongside you and help you. All right, so let's keep going. I want you to answer that question. All right, why do so many churches still like ministry is a one person? All right, we're going to dive into that. All right, I see some of your responses coming in already. Sometimes there's the fear of losing control. Absolutely. Absolutely. And if you're a senior leader and you fear losing control, a part of what you're going through is your own responsibility. It's your own responsibility, right? So you've got to map that out. And I know you say, well, you can't just give it to anybody. I get it. All right, but that's a part of your journey you've got to walk through, is to lead through it. Right? It's challenging. It's difficult. I discovered some things in the last 2 weeks within our business that we had to address with one of our staff people. But guess what? I didn't bash them. Really, what I realized is that ultimately it was my responsibility. And so guess what? My hands are back in it. I'm boots on the ground. I'm in the mud, making sure that we can serve everybody well. Right. So we got to do that. Some people not willing to take responsibility. That's absolutely right. Some people want titles, but they don't want the responsibility that comes with those titles. Sometimes we don't have the structure or we don't delegate well. Oh, Lord, we just started using some words now. Don't start talking about delegation. You know, that could be a cuss word when it comes to pastors sometimes. Right. We don't delegate well. That's good. We lack trust in the ability of others. That's true. Just like God uses you, he can use them, right? So all of those things are true. I want you to keep dropping your answers there. Let's talk for a minute about God's blueprint. I want to give you 3 biblical examples of God's blueprint, and then we're going to come around to getting ready to build this thing, all right? What's God's blueprint? Couple of passages. Number 1, Exodus 18. Man, years ago, every year, one of the things that I do is I really kind of ask the Lord, you know, what's the word he wants me to carry for the year when I go to conferences and things of that nature. And probably about 3 years ago, the word the Lord gave me was Exodus 18. And it's when Jethro comes to Moses and Jethro comes to visit. He said, I want to see how you operate, man. You out here, man. Y'all in ministry, man. Old Moses, who was on the backside of the mountain that came out here, he working for the Lord. Let me come see how things are going. He comes out there to watch Moses, and Moses is standing up from sunup to sundown, answering questions, solving problems. And Jethro sees one day of this, and he's like, nah, this ain't it, fam. He says, this is not it. This is not going to work. He said, you're going to wear yourself out and you're going to wear the leaders, the people out too. He said, you're going to wear yourself out because no matter how many problems you solve, there's always going to be more problems left. He said, and you're going to wear the people out because no matter how many people you help, there's going to be some people you ignore. My Lord, today. He said, this ain't going to work. It's a lose-lose situation. He said, you got to find a different way. So he says, here's what you need to do. He said, you need to go out and find some elders, find some people who have these characteristics. They don't love money. They're not going to take a bribe, you know, all these kind of things, some of the same things we see in the New Testament. He says, and what's going to happen is you got to let the Lord put your spirit on them. They got to get the same spirit as you. But here's what's going to happen, right? Because you're not going to find one person, Moses, who can do everything you do and who's just like you. So here's what you got to do instead. He said, appoint some as leaders over tens, 50s, hundreds, and thousands. Now, let me help a senior leader. One of the reasons that you may be frustrated with some of the leaders around you is you may be overextending their capacity. You may be trying to get them to be a leader of 50s when really they're a leader of 10s. Right? You've got to be able to assess what you really have and let people serve where they are capable, not just where the need is. You know, sometimes, especially as a senior leader, when you step out of a ministry and you give it to somebody else, sometimes you can't give it to one person. Sometimes you got to take what you've been doing and divide it amongst 2 or 3 people. But this was the blueprint. He said, look, Moses, you do what only you can do, man, but let them do that simple stuff. Let them do that simple stuff. Like, he's like, listen, Moses, you got to go up on the mountain. You got to talk to God. You done started the first mega church. You got all this stuff going on. Why are people coming to you asking, hey, is it wrong if I eat this kind of bread? Like, Moses, listen, man, you got to get that to somebody else. People shouldn't be calling you for these things. You should have other people who are partnered with you in ministry who can help to do that. All right, let's look at another one. Acts chapter 6. The apostles appoint deacons so they can focus on prayer and teaching the word. That's the biblical blueprint. You know, here's one of the things that's important. If you want to grow as a leader and if you want to see your church grow, one of the things that you've got to do is that you have got to intentionally put down things that you are good at so that you can make space for the things that you can lean into what God is wanting you to do, right? You got to put down some good things. You got to take some stuff that you're good at, that you like doing, right? I'll give a prime example. One of the things I love to do is I love tinkering with tech. And so I like creating digital products. I like building websites. I like doing all those different things. I realized earlier this year that we're going to be limited in the number of churches we can help if every church has to wait for me to personally do it, even though I love to do it, because I'm an interpreter. I'm a vision interpreter. If I talk to you for 60 minutes, I can hear what God is trying to do in your vision, and I can spit that vision back to you in new, simplified language that will take you towards the future. I can take an apostolic vision, put it in prophetic language, and help you figure out how to get there. But I can't do all those things if I'm stuck working behind a computer 24/7. I don't have time to talk with pastors. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. And so there are times where you got to put down things that you enjoy. And one of the places where I see this most is for leaders who are getting ready to make the journey to go from a season where they lead a church under 50 to where they lead a church that's closer to 100 and above. Because to make that transition, the shepherd in you has to decrease so that the evangelist, the prophet, and the apostle in you can increase. Because those gifts are typically expansion gifts. And it's hard, but that's a part of the biblical model. The disciples said, man, we gotta focus on preaching and praying. We got to focus on the things that are really going to move the organization forward, move the church forward, move the kingdom forward. So that means we got to raise up some other people. We got to raise up some deacons who can take care of these people in this way. And just because I started off taking care of the people and being down in the mud with them does not make me less than, because I've got to spend a little bit less time doing that and more time doing other things. And this is where you have to be reminded that your leadership is not just about what you do. It's about what you make sure it gets done. I'm going to say it again. Somebody put this in the chat. Leadership is not just about what you do. It's about what you make sure it gets done, which means that if you put somebody in place to do it and you make sure they do it, you're still fulfilling your assignment. All right, let's keep going. Ephesians 4, God's blueprint. Jesus is leaving. The Bible says he wants to fill the whole earth with himself. So what he realizes is I can't put the pressure on one person to be everything I am. So he takes his DNA. I like to call it APEST or the fivefold Jesus DNA. He takes his DNA and he disperses it amongst his people. some apostolic, some prophetic, some evangelistic, some pastoral, some teaching. Some who want to move the church forward, some who want to align the church upward, some who want to grow the church outward, some who want to grow the church inward, and some who want to implant the church into. Some who want to govern, some who want to guide, some who want to gather, some who want to guard, and some who want to ground. All of that is the Jesus DNA, is the fivefold. And he takes his DNA and he divides it up so that everybody can carry a portion so that it can all get done. The healthiest churches and the healthiest congregations and the healthiest bodies in scripture were never about one person. They were teams of called leaders. Teams. I'm just setting the pace here. I'm setting the pace. All right. We're still in the intro. I'm just setting the pace here. All right. So let me give you my third question. I want y'all to jump in the chat and I want y'all to answer this. What's one specialized skill that you think your church could benefit from right now? All right. I want you to think about that. I want you to think about your church for a second. What's one special gift that, man, you say, man, if we had this, it'll help? Is that a social media person, a children's director, a youth minister, somebody who does video and audio? What's one specialized skill that your church could benefit from right now? I want you to drop it in the chat. All right. What's one specialized skill? Because we're about to talk about this. One specialized skill that your church could benefit from right now. All right, I want you to think about that. Because the Bible shows us a unified approach to ministry, not a solo. All right, so let's talk about this. Let's talk about some specialization. All right, why is specialization so important in the future? You know, I feel like the church I grew up in was much more generalist, right? You had just good people who could do whatever you asked them to do. And even if they couldn't do it well, they would go and try it. And one of the things that has changed that is that we have brought, inadvertently, we have brought a need for high-level performance into the kingdom, right? And some of that, I think there are some positive benefits, and some of that, there are some consequences too. Because what has happened is now we sometimes tend to have a church where if people cannot do something at a high level, they are uncomfortable growing in the public eye because everything is so public and people can see our mistakes. People seem to be less willing to try things and to attempt things in the public eye. But one of the things that we need now is, rather than just generalists, and we will always need the ministry of helps. I think the ministry of helps will always be relevant, but we need specialists. Here's why 2025 ministry requires specialists. Number one, we need digital expertise. And I see some of you put that. Man, if I had a social media person, man, we could crush it, right? But one of the things that's so good about that, especially for the two of you, Pastor Pierce and Pastor Barnes, is that we've got something that's coming into the boot camp that's going to help you. As a matter of fact, I've got an entire module in the boot camp that will walk you through some of the tools that we use that basically can help take care of social media for you until you get to the point where you have everything you need. So we can talk about that, but you need digital expertise, right? I can't say this enough. You might have 50 people in person, and you might be able to reach 5,000 people online, but you got to have the digital expertise to know how to get to them, right? Another thing is that, we're going to have to really advance in our financial stewardship. We have to do more with less. Basically, we have to do more with less today. In 2025, we've got to do more with less. We've got to be able to have the same budget, but to somehow be able to reach people in teams and build teams that are really going to help things go forward, right? So we got to have that. Also, volunteer management, right? You don't have time to text every volunteer and make sure they're coming. Because I can tell you right now, if you're not sending out some kind of reminder for your volunteers and stuff like that, that might be one of the reasons that they're inconsistent, right? And so you need some kind of system that can help you manage volunteers and make sure that everybody's on the same page. Number 4, you need leadership pipelines. And this is, again, I'm telling you, this is why this is a challenge in 2025, is that there was a time where if you could preach, man, you could build a church. If you would just preach and love on people, if you didn't mind going to visit people and you were nice and you would and you could preach good, man, you could build a church. We no longer live in that day. Now you got to be able to preach. You need to be nice to people, but you also got to have digital expertise. You got to manage the money right. You can't have no scandals and stuff going on. You can't keep begging every day and we don't see no progress. And now you got to make leaders. And you've always needed to do this, but now you really got to focus on it. I believe leadership development and your ability to develop leaders today is one of the great markers of the average growing church. All right. And so one of the things that you've got to understand is that you've got to have that ability to understand why specialists are needed. And here is why, and this is a part of the heart of what I want to share tonight. Here is why you need outside help. Here's my rule of thumb, and it's not in my notes, but I want y'all to write this down because this is really important. If you want to reinforce your culture, hire from within. If you want to change your culture, hire from without. All right, I'm going to say it again. If you want to reinforce your culture, hire from within. If you want to change your culture, hire from without. Here's what I mean. If you have a culture and you love the way it is and you like everything just like it is, then just the rule of thumb is just promote somebody from inside. It's the person from inside who grew up in the culture. They're going to reinforce it. They're already doing what you like, so they're just going to keep on doing what you like. All right. But if you need to change your culture, if there is something that needs to be in your culture that's not there, then what you need to do is you need to find somebody from the outside who can come inside and bring the thing that you're missing. All right. And this is one of the benefits of outside specialists. All right. Here's a couple of things that outside specialists will bring to you, because here's what I'm giving you, senior pastors, senior leaders, team members. I'm giving you a solution for you to stop wrecking your brain, experimenting and costing yourself time and energy and money by constantly trying to figure it out on your own. I'm trying to show you that one of the things that's going to help you break through in the next season is your willingness to find specialists who meet the specific needs that you have. Right. And again, this is not going to be a blanket statement across the board. It's going to be different for everybody. But you got to find specialists who meet the need that you have. Let me give you a couple of things. Number one, a couple of things that you get from specialists that's really important. Number one, you get tested systems and processes. When you find a specialist, what you find is somebody who, while you've committed your life to leading the church you lead, they've committed their life to the specific area in which they are a specialist, right? So I'll use myself as an example. I have spent many years as a pastor, senior pastor, executive pastor, campus minister, and all these different things. But I've spent the last probably 15 years of my life really trying to grow in the realm of systems. And so as I've grown into that and spent even the last 6, almost 7 years building repeatable systems that can be plugged into any church, while you were focusing on the ins and outs and the ups and downs and the hills and valleys of leading a church, I was doing that by testing systems on the backside of the mountain. So when we come together, I'm not bringing you something that's theoretical. I'm coming to you saying, hey, here's what we know works. Now let's contextualize it to where you are, right? So you get stuff that's already tested. So that means it works. So all you got to do is run the play. That's one of the things I've been saying to our pastors, like, look, hey, let's run the play. Let's run the play. Like, I'm so excited, man. I was looking at it. We've been on this 90-day journey, getting ready for Back to Church Sunday and all this kind of stuff. Man, we got in about a month from now, we are launching 2 churches and we are replanting, I think, 3 churches, launching and relaunching. So we got 5 new works that are coming out. And I'm so fired up about that. Because these are leaders who were like, man, we know God has called us to do. We know we're trying to figure it out, but they needed the blueprint. And so what we did is that we took the blueprint that we have run with churches for the last 4 years. Every fall, we have done the same thing for the last 4 years. We say we're doing a fall lunch. We're doing a fall lunch, and we've been testing it for 4 years. Every year it gets a little bit better. And now we've got 5 churches who are taking that same blueprint, and now they're getting ready to take off running. That's what a specialist brings. Another thing a specialist brings is accelerated solutions. One of the biggest things that I see many churches leaking is time. It's time. I think if you were doing it on your own, you are smart enough and determined enough, you might be able to figure it out. The question is, how long is it going to take you? How long is it going to take you? Because, in Nehemiah, we see they got a sword in one hand and a trowel in the other, right? That's what they do in Nehemiah. Man, but some of y'all got 4 swords in one hand and a little baby trowel in your pinky finger, and you trying to build the future with that pinky finger while fighting all these issues. And what ends up happening is you still can do it, right? So you could get it done, but it's going to take so much longer. And it's going to take you so much longer. And the problem with it taking longer is that if you got a hole in the boat, the longer it takes you to patch that hole, the deeper you begin to sink. And the more people jump off the ship. So by the time you do figure it out, you have lost people who were really ordained to stay with you, right? And so it's accelerated solutions. So you need to find help to get accelerated solutions, right? I'll give you another example. We work with this organization here in Birmingham. I've worked with them for years called Christian Service Mission. And one of the reasons that we work with this organization is that their specialty is outreach. The director is a believer, a mentor of mine. He wants to see the church be expanding and serving in the lives of people. And so they got a warehouse. They spend all their time getting goods from Walmart and Amazon and CVS and Walgreens. All the extra stuff comes to them, and they give it to churches and let churches pass it out. Now, I could spend all this money. I could spend all this time driving to the grocery store saying, man, look, give us the stuff that y'all gonna throw away anyway. Give us those goods that are marked for expiration. Give us those different things. I can spend all that time, money, and energy doing that. Or I can go to this specialist and say, hey, we want to do this event on this weekend. What do y'all think? How can you help us? And they can say, all right, here's what we're going to do. Bring a truck with a lift gate, and we're going to load you up with this and this and this. And when we load you up with these different things, you can now go. And all I got to do is go get the stuff, show up and do the event. Accelerated solutions. What would have cost me more money, energy, and time, it speeds up because we're going forward. Come on, accelerated solutions. That's it. Come on, Pastor Paula. Pastor Paula is one of the ones I'm talking about. Accelerated solutions. Like we were talking about this last week. Just what has happened all this time. And she shared her own testimony. But she shared it after I've been trying to do this and we just been stuck. We come into covenant, and it hadn't even been, I don't even think it's been 3 months yet. And it's already people who had left coming back to the church. It's already people engaging at a different level, right? That's accelerated solutions. That's what a specialist brings. Another thing is reduced trial and error. I'll be honest about this. I'm going to do a TikTok series about this, probably starting tomorrow. And I'm going to do this TikTok series called these controversies we don't want to talk about, controversial things the church doesn't want to talk about. And one of those things is many churches have lost people because the leader was doing trial and error. The leader was doing trial and error in areas that were too valuable to do trial and error. And as a result, we inadvertently hurt people, and we inadvertently reject people. We inadvertently push people away because we're doing trial and error. When you hire a specialist, you don't have to do trial and error. When I go work with Christian Service Mission, I know they're doing what they're doing because they've been doing it. That's what they've been focusing on. And so as a result, I do what they tell me to do. I walk through it, and guess what? I can go through it. And so I don't have to do trial and error. So I don't have to do an outreach event that's so poorly organized that my best volunteer is saying, like, man, this was a waste of time. I'm not coming out here and doing this again. You done wasted my whole Saturday, and we didn't promote the event. We didn't talk about it. The stuff wasn't organized. Everything was everywhere. It was terrible. It was this. Now I don't have to do that trial and error. I can do it with excellence the first time. All right. Another thing is cost-effective alternatives. I was talking to a pastor in Louisiana probably about 2 hours ago, and he was kind of telling me about where they were and their church and so on and so on. And one of the things I said to him was, I said, look, I'm going to be honest with you. I said, here's why I think our program is so valuable. I said, for you to hire me as a full-time staff person, I said, it'd be pretty expensive. I said, I'm not sure you want to pay that fee. I said, no, it'd be worth it. I said, it'd be absolutely worth it because I'm going to do what you bring me to do, right? I said, but for you to hire me full-time, it wouldn't work. But guess what? If you hire me as your outside specialist, if you hire me and my team and our company and you come alongside, allow us to come alongside you, guess what? You get a fractional executive pastor. You know, in the business world, they have this thing called a fractional CFO or a fractional COO or whatever it is. And basically what it means is I'm going to give you the service of that role at a fraction of the time and a fraction of the cost, right? So instead of having to pay a CFO $100,000 a year to help manage everything going on at this company, I can pay this specialist $25,000 a year and still get all the things. And that's one of the things that you get when you hire a specialist. And I need us to get it in the body of Christ, because this is something that I had to learn, and the Holy Spirit really had to break this lack mentality off of me. Is that when I invest in a coach or a service or a program, it's not just about the money that I give them. It's about what it would cost me to do it on my own. That's what it's about. It's not about how much I paid. It's about how much I'm going to save. Like, listen, y'all, I'm not going to call the name because I don't know if these leaders are still connected, if they're watching. But some time ago, I was in conversation with a pastor, and we were talking, and the Lord just really moved my heart to us. And I said, all right, man, here's what we'll do for you, man. I'll do it at this rate. We'll help you out. You just help, cover the cost for my team and cover the cost for my travel. And we'll do this, man. And we'll get this thing solved for you. We'll get this blah, blah, blah. And he just kept, it wasn't that he couldn't do it. He just kind of kept trying to negotiate. I'm like, bro, I said, listen, I'm doing the best I can for you. I can't go no better than this. I said, I'm telling you, it's going to cost you more. He's like, well, no, I think we can figure it out. I'm like, all right, cool. He says, we can figure it out. Man, I talked to that same brother sometime later, and he had lost more than 60% of his congregation because the hole was still in the boat. And he's saying, man, I could patch it. I'm going to patch it. I can do this on my own. I do this on my own. Man, what you said right there was good enough. I'm going to take that and try that on my own first. And I'm like, all right, that's your prerogative. Please go and try it. But the hole was still in the boat. And because the hole was still in the boat, almost 60% of that congregation jumped off because he was more focused on what it was going to cost, not what it was going to save. The most expensive thing in a church's budget is inaction. My goodness, somebody put that in the chat. Underdog, put that on a t-shirt. The most expensive thing in a church's budget is inaction. When you don't take action on the things that you know you need to address and solve, whether it be people stuff or whether it be system stuff, whatever it is, that becomes one of the most expensive things in the budget, right? And so we got to do it. And here's the final thing that I'll say that I think is so important about specialists. Specialists bring specialized knowledge that pastors can't maintain. It is impossible for you to be an expert specialist on everything. It's impossible. That's why one of the first books that I have our pastors read when they come into our program is a book titled Who Not How. So you stop asking, how do I do this? And you start asking, who can come help us do this? Right? So some of you, there are some things that you need. There's some things that you need to do. There's some things you want to learn. You don't need to go learn social media. You don't need to go learn children's ministry. You just need to find a person who knows it, and you need to partner with them. But it's finding a specialist. Man, years ago, we were pastoring a church in Huntsville, Alabama, and it was a small congregation. And because when I got there, it was a congregation that went through a lot of stuff, small congregation, but I knew we needed children's ministry to move forward. But at the time, we had about 30 people attending regularly when I got there. And so I was like, okay, well, I know we don't have the staff for it, and we were trying to do it. It was too much. And so what I did is I went to our elders. I said, hey, look, here's what I want to do. I said, I need y'all to give me a budget. I need y'all to give me $250 a month. What are you going to do with $250 a month? I said, I'm going to partner with somebody who can help us begin to build children's ministry. They're like, for $250 a month, where do you think you're going to find somebody who will do this for $250 a month? I said, here's the first thing I need to know. Are you willing to give me $250 a month? Are you willing to say yes to that? Okay, cool. You say yes to that. All right, here's what I'm going to do. I went and found a teacher who was a believer. And I said, hey, how would you feel about making just me giving you an offering, a seed, a stipend of $50 for an hour on Sunday? Kids going to be with us, in there with us when we open up service. What I need from you is to be in that room, and I'll have somebody else in there with you, so you won't be in there by yourself, but you're a teacher. You know how to organize a classroom. You know how to structure. You know how to do a lesson plan. We need help with that. So what I want you to do is be in that room. After worship, we'll bring all the kids to you. You'll have them for approximately 45 minutes because our service is short. And once you finish, the parents will come back and get the kids, and you can reset the room, and you can go, and we'll be good to go. And guess what? Somebody said yes. I found a specialist. I didn't keep beating my parents over the head saying, well, these y'all kids y'all need to serve. But guess what? They live with them kids 24/7. When they come to church, they trying to come to church to receive, right? And I'm not saying they shouldn't serve. They should. But kids might not be the area they want to serve. I'm telling you right now, I don't care what your vision is. You probably couldn't ever convince me to come serve in your children's ministry. I will sit in your church and smile and listen to you preach, and send all my kids to the back. But the moment you say the only way your kids can come is if I come back there with you, I ain't going to have them. Because that ain't my jam. But what I could do is partner with the right who. And that's what outside specialists do. Outside specialists are the who's who bring something to the table that you cannot sustain on your own. All right. So let me ask this question. All right. Have you ever worked with a coach or a consultant? I want you to let me know in the chat. If you have worked with a coach or consultant before, let me know in the chat. But not only that, let me know what your experience was like. What is a good experience? Was it a bad experience? Let me know. How did it go? How was your experience working with a coach or consultant? I want to know. I want to hear what the barriers are. I want to hear what the challenges are. I want to hear why it worked or why it didn't work. All right, let me know in the chat. Have you ever worked with a coach or consultant? And if you did, what was your experience? Let me know in the chat. What was your experience? All right. Now, let me keep going. We're almost home because, at the end, I got to give you the steps. I got to give you the roadmap. I'm going to give you the blueprint. All right. So we're almost there. So let's talk about this. All right. We talked about the why specialization is the future and why we need it and why it matters. But let me say this before I get into that. All right. One of the things that you got to know is that the smartest pastors are not the ones who know everything, but they're the ones who know where to get help. Right. So there's something I listen for whenever I meet with a pastor. I'm listening. If I talk to a pastor and they ask me a question, and then when I give them an answer, every answer is, oh, yeah, we did that. Oh, yeah, I know how to do that. Oh, yeah, I could do that. I could do that. Because in my head, I'm thinking like, okay, if you done that and you know how to do it, why is it not bearing fruit? So one of the things I'm looking for, which is why our boot camp has been closed to the public, it's an application only process now, because I work directly with those pastors, is I'm looking for the awareness of what that leader realizes are their gaps. I'm listening to hear, do you know where your gaps are? Do you know that, hey, I don't know how to do this, or I know how to do it, I don't have time and energy to do it, but I'm willing to get help is what I'm searching for. Because that's when I know we have a good fit. Because the smartest pastors aren't the ones who know everything, but they're the ones who know where to get help. That's it. That's it. That's where it is, right? And Pastor Karen said, first time ever. Okay, so Pastor Karen is working with us. They're in our program now. Super excited about them. First time in. Pastor Pierce said he worked with a coach, but their blueprint was too big for our structure. Yeah, that's a big deal. I'm going to talk about that. One of the church controversies I'm going to talk about that the church doesn't want to really address is the fact that megachurch pastors make bad mentors. And I don't know who your coach was, so I'm not saying it was a mega church pastor, but I think church pastors with large congregations often make bad mentors, because even though they may be experienced where we are, they're not where we are. And when you are a micro church, when you're a church of a certain size, your church is an intensive care patient. Not because something is wrong with it. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying because the level of care you need is, you need a nurse that's always close. You need a nurse that's always one buzzer away. Bump, bump, bump. That's what you need when you're a micro church. I believe that's important. And sometimes when we get into these programs, so many programs, it's one of the reasons we started what we did, because so many programs are joining it with great information. And thankfully I could translate it. But man, it was like, bro, you talking about, doing an outreach project for 100 volunteers. I can just bring my volunteers to my house and say thank you, right? I can just cook a dinner and say, look, y'all come sit around my table. I just want to say thank you. Like, I don't have to go, rent out Top Golf, to do, like, no, like, I got to do something different. And so you got to find something that works. You got to find something that works for you and that goes. Pastor Paula, absolutely. Kingdom Authority has come in. They working with us. And so I'm excited, man. I'm so excited about what God is doing there. Right now, let's talk about the benefits of coaches and consultants. Right. And please, I want you to hear this. You know what areas of ministry where you need help, where you might need coaches and consultants. Some of you talked about social media. There are social media coaches and consultants out there who can help you with your social media, who can help you with your website, with your digital presence, who can help you with your systems, who can help you with your leadership development, all those different things, right? They're out there. But again, here are a couple of benefits. Number one, again, proven strategies. When you get proven strategies, you get battle-tested tools, right? We've been doing something, and some of you may have this resource. We released a resource called the Turnaround Toolkit, and I know some of you all got it. And I was texting everybody who got it, who purchased it last week, and just asking, hey, how's it going so far? What's been your feedback? And so many people overwhelmingly are like, man, this is gold. I can't believe this was $47. And I was like, yeah, I just wanted to, we wanted to be a blessing to you. We gave them this treasure trove of stuff to say, hey, if you don't know where to start, here's a starting point, right? And it's proven strategies. It's stuff we've tried and we've worked on it. And said, all right, here you go. Here's a strategy. I want you to taste and see that what we're talking about works. All right. Another thing is an outside perspective. Ben Franklin talked about this. If you get a crack in the mirror in your bathroom, if that crack stays there over a period of time, I think it's like 6 months, that crack becomes invisible to your brain. Your brain literally adjusts to adjust your eyesight so that the crack is in the invisible zone of your eyesight and you don't notice it anymore. It's like some of us, and I say some of us, I'm not guilty of this right now, I've been guilty of this in the past, who walk around and have that fire alarm beeping in the house. And it's been beeping so long, we don't even notice it anymore. Like, we just completely ignored it. We don't even hear it, right? Because we start to ignore it. And so the reason you need outside perspective is because there are some things in your church that you were against in the early days, but attrition wore you down. And now you're letting it slide. And you need somebody else with fresh eyes to come in and say, hey, we need to address this. Hey, I was coming through the front door and I saw this. All right. Accelerated growth is that you can solve problems faster than doing them on your own. Because when you work with a coach, a consultant, a mentor, they are giving you their lessons. They are giving you their lessons without their burdens and without the challenges and without the bruises. They're giving you all the benefits. When I read a book, that's somebody who already took the test, giving me the answers. And that's what coaches and consultants do. And then also it leads to freedom for the pastor. It leads to great freedom. It brings you into a space and a season where you can have greater freedom because you have the freedom to really focus on what you need to do. All right. Here's something I want you to get, and I want y'all to put this in the chat. A coach will help you leap over problems that you've been circling for years. A good coach helps you leap over problems that you've been circling for years. Oh my goodness, that's so good. A good coach helps you leap over problems that you've been circling for years. And so stuff you've been wrestling with. I was talking to a pastor, this was a couple of years ago. He's 60 something years old. And we were talking and he was like, man, I'm trying to figure out this. And I said, all right, here's your next level. I said, you need to do this. He's like, man, I don't have a staff. I don't do that. I said, no, you got a staff. I said, you just haven't been calling them there yet. I said, so you need to take this group of people right here. I said, you need to make them your staff. I said, if you make them your staff, I said, they're not paid staff. I'm not saying you got to pay them. I said, but if you make them your staff and treat them like your staff, I said, I think that'll get you over the hump to your next level. Man, he went back and did it. The next time we met, he literally was sitting down, breaking down in tears. He said, man, I cannot believe that in the past 20 years, I never thought of that. I never saw that. He said, I can't believe that I didn't think to look at this that way. And that was such a small, simple tweak, but it made such a difference. That's what outside help does. A good coach will come in and see a problem you've been walking around for years saying, man, what are we going to do? What are we going to do with this? And literally step in and go. One of the greatest compliments I've received, my uncle said to me one day, he was introducing me at the convention. I was going to speak. He said, listen, if you call him anytime, he said, I call him all times of night. He said, any question I ask him related to ministry, it's like he's been sitting up thinking about it, waiting on me to call. And that's one of the greatest compliments I've ever received, simply because I believe a great coach helps you leap over what you've been circling for years. All right. So let's keep going. All right. So look at this. I'm getting ready to come into the last part. And I want to give you this real quick, and then I'm going to give you the blueprint. And there are a couple of things I want you to avoid, because some of you are going to go out there and you're going to start your search for a coach, for a consultant in the areas where you need help. All right. But so here's a couple of things that I want to caution you about, and I want to always be balanced. And so I want to give you the other side of the coin. So here's a couple of things I want you to watch out for. Don't just hire for hype. Okay. Don't just hire because somebody has a great pitch or somebody says great words. Look for actual results. Vet them, vet their credentials, vet their results. That's why I meet with a pastor before they join our program, right? Depending on which program you join. I want to talk to you. I want to, you need to be vetting me because I'm vetting you. I want to see how you operate. If I get a hint in your conversation that you're lazy and you don't like doing the work, experience has taught me I'm not your person. I'm not your person. Listen, some of these pastors in the chat can tell you right now, like, I want to be moving. I feel a sense of urgency for your church. I feel a sense of urgency for the kingdom. Now, it doesn't personally benefit me one way or another how fast you grow, but I care so much about the churches that we work with. I feel like I'm a part of them. And so guess what? I'm going to be pushing the gas. I'm going to be pushing you in the back. Hey, where you at on this? Where you at on this? Where you at on this? This week, you got to do this because next week I'm going to give you something else to do, right? And you got to take your time and vet people. Make sure that you can see fruit. The other thing is make sure you can see consistency. If you're going to work with a culture consultant, prepare for the long haul. That's why a couple of years ago, we made the shift and we made our program a 12-month program. So you walk with us for at least 12 months, because if you keep changing directions, every time you make a sharp turn, there's a risk of somebody falling off. And every time you try this new thing, hey, we ready for this? We ready for that, man? We ready to go do this? Let's go. And you do this and it don't work out, it causes challenges. So the next time it's harder to get your team as excited. It's harder to get your churches excited. And so you've got to make sure that you aim for consistency, right? If you considered one of our programs, come into that program with the mindset of, man, I'm going to do this for a year. I'm going to commit for a year. And if it works, man, let's go. If it doesn't, it's not going to be because I didn't do my part, right? So aim for consistency. Another thing is, man, you got to take action. You got to take action. I don't care who you hire or who you pay. If you don't do what they tell you to do, you're not going to see results. You're not going to see results. You got to do the work. And here's what's so, oh my goodness. Here's what's so crazy about this, y'all. is that I was talking about this the other day with somebody. The Bible says that before Abraham even makes the sacrifice, the Lord sees his intent and he counts it unto him as righteousness. He saw that Abraham had made up his mind. He had made up in his heart to do it. And he started blessing his intention before he ever even got to the big full action. He had taken some action, but he had not even gotten to the action yet. And the Lord counted it to him as righteousness. And listen, over and over and over again, I just shared Pastor Paula. She said, man, I feel like we're not doing enough, but God is already working. And I'm like, listen, God is blessing your intent. I was talking to one of our new pastors in San Antonio, Dr. Sully. And he said, man, since the last time we talked, we done baptized this many people. This many people came to church. He said, from the moment I clicked that button to say yes, he said, the Lord has opened the floodgates. And I believe not just because we're so special. I think what we do plays a huge part and we help a lot. But it was the intention. He set his intention, I'm going to do this. And when you set your intention that you're going to be committed, it's not about you being perfect. I was telling our pastors this just last Thursday on a coaching call. I said, it's not about you being perfect. You're going to get some things wrong. I said, but make some effort and God is going to bless your effort. If you invite 30 people to church, the 30 people you invited might not come, but God is going to start sending people from other places because you're doing what he told you to do. Right? You're going to see it. I'm telling you, I have lived it. I have walked it. I was pastoring a church that had 40 people in it. I started passing out invitation. Not a single person I invited came. And yet within 18 months from that point, that church went from 30 to 150. And it was because God was blessing the intention. So you got to take action, right? Your first action is to make up your mind. Is why Jesus said, follow me. I'll make you fishers of men. Following is a decision of the head. I'll make you as a change of the heart. Fishers of men is the fruit of the hands. Jesus says, if you start with the decision and you let me work on you as we go, I'll do some of the work along the way. My yoke is easy, my burden is light. He says, then guess what? You're going to see the fruit with your hands. And so I'm telling you, it's going to happen. Come on, that's good. Pastor Paul, the leaders were healed as they went. Come on, somebody. The leper, they was healed as they went, as they walked on. Listen, don't get me started. Don't stir me up in here tonight. Listen, you've got to take action. One of the most expensive things on your budget is inaction. The longer you stay where you are, the more it costs you. All right. And here's another thing. A coach and consultant is a partner, not a replacement. They're a supplement, not a substitute. There are some things I can't do for you. To be honest, I'm a midwife. That's what I am to a degree. I'm a midwife. I'm here to help you birth it. But guess what? When it's time to push, that's on you. You got to have this baby. I can help you, but if you're going to give birth to the promised seed, Sarah, you're going to have to birth that thing out of your womb. That means you're going to have to scream. You're going to have to cry. You're going to have to chew on ice. You're going to have to do all the things that you got to do to get there, but it's going to be your responsibility. Nobody else can do it for you. So even when you get help, help comes to be a supplement, not a substitute. A supplement, not a substitute. All right. I want y'all to answer this next question. All right. One more question is I want you to think about this. Why do some leaders resist bringing in outside help? I want y'all to let me know in the chat. Why do some leaders resist bringing in outside help? Even when they know they've come to the end of themselves, even when they know they can't do it, why do they resist outside help? Why do they resist it? Somebody let me know in the chat. I'll tell you a couple of reasons I think they resist it. One, I think it's pride and feeling like I need to know everything. I think that's one of the things that holds leaders back. I think one of them is fear of being exposed or appearing incompetent. We think that, if we get help, that means we're less than. And really, it's the opposite. Sometimes it's budget concern, right? And I'll say this, you got to invest in the right things these days. You should not be investing in things that don't pay for themselves. That's always been my rule of thumb as a staff person. And when it comes to hiring staff person, I will hire somebody. And if I have it, I will pay the fee that they ask for. But every good staff member has to pay for themselves. They have to pay for themselves. And when you bring in the right help, it will pay for itself. The right help will pay for itself. Listen, I could tell you many times over. One of our pastors was sharing on a coaching call a couple of months ago. He said our budget is about, he said we've almost tripled in the last 3 years since we joined the program. Because it closed up some of the issues we had going on, and it helped us go forward. Right? And so we've got to understand, we got to allocate money to the right things. We got to put it to the right things. And sometimes it's past negative experiences. All right. And I see a lot of you saying, I see a couple of different answers. Budget is a concern for some people. Absolutely. Pride, fear, shame, and embarrassment. Sometimes it's the cost. It's getting exposed, all those different things. Right. And so we've got to make sure that we understand that when we invest, we invest. For example, when I hire Facebook as my coaching, as my consultant to show my company and my products to people on Facebook, I fully believe that Facebook is going to pay for itself. So if I give them $5 for ads, I believe that they're going to give me $10 back in people who actually purchase something that we have going on. Every good staff person on your staff ought to pay for themselves. Now, I'm going to leave y'all with that one. But every good staff person ought to pay for themselves. All right. So let me give you this last one, and then I'm going to close out. All right. So here's how you make the shift. And you want to go to a space where you can approach this as a team, particularly with getting some outside help and a coach or consultant, because I'm telling you, that's going to be the game changer. The Lord is raising up specialists who are coaches and consultants who are filling gaps in the kingdom and then coming back to the body of Christ saying, let me help you solve this problem. Because you don't have it in-house, you don't have it on staff, but you know what? For a fraction of what it would cost to hire somebody, I'll come in and help you. All right. So here's how to do it. Here's a couple of step-by-steps. And I want you to, if you can, please take notes on this. Just jot down what the Holy Spirit says to you. 5 things. All right. Number 1, audit what's on your pastor's plate. This is an exercise I give our pastors every few months. I say, I want you to make a list of absolutely everything you do that's ministry related. I don't care how big it is, how small it is. If you got to straighten up the chairs, if you got to clean the bathrooms, if you got to go and buy tissue, if you got to pick up food for distribution, if you got to preach, if you got whatever it is, just make a list of all the things that you have, right? And if you make a list of all the things that are on your plate, I want you to go and start putting an X next to all the things that you know you should not be doing because somebody else can do it, right? So the first thing you got to do is you got to audit what's on the senior pastor's plate. List everything that you're doing that somebody else needs to be doing. I'll never forget this. Many years ago, probably about 5 years ago, I took a class with this lady who was teaching about business and things of that nature. And she said, everything in your life falls into 1 or 3 categories. She said, you got $1 tasks, you got $10 tasks. No, she said $1 task, $10 task, $100 task, and $1,000 task. She says, as the leader, you ought to be doing $1,000 tasks consistently and $100 tasks periodically. You should not be doing any $1 and $5 tasks. And she was just literally organizing it to say the value of these different things changes who can do them. And so you need to identify what's on the pastor's plate. Number 2, you need to identify the gaps. When you look at what's on the pastor's plate, now you want to compare that to what does the church need? What's missing in the church? When you look at the church and you go like, man, something here is man, if we had this, there's something that's missing. Some of y'all said that earlier. Some of you said social media. Some of you said children. You said, oh, man, if we had this, this would be a game changer. What are you missing? You want to assess what you're missing, determine exactly what you're looking for, right? If one of the first steps in getting help is understanding the help you need to get crystal clear on the help you need. What is the help you need? You need to know that. All right. So identify the gaps. Number 3, now you want to start building a pool of who are the potential specialists who can help me solve this problem. Right. Right now, the specialist economy is rising. And I'm not one of those people who complains about it. I know there's a lot of companies out there that are running ads, that are emailing you and inboxing you and trying to sell their stuff and so on and so on. The way you discern the difference is you got to identify what you need and see if it matches, right? I had a pastor I talked to maybe 2 weeks ago, and he was like, man, yeah, I was thinking about signing up with this company. He was like, they do ads and stuff like that. So they're going to help us get a whole lot of people. I was like, okay, that's dope. I was like, how do you follow up with your first time guest? He's like, man, that's one of the issues we have. I said, so do you think getting more people to show up to funnel into a system that's broken is a solution to help you? Or is it just going to make it more chaotic and make you more frustrated because people are going to come visit and not come back? And he sat there and he was like, you know what? That makes sense. Like, you got to identify what you need and then start looking and saying, okay, who are the people who can help us? Who are the coaches? Who are the consultants? Maybe even who are the other church leaders? Who are the people who have the skill set that can help us in this area? All right. Then number 4, you need to revisit and clarify the roles of yourself as a senior leader, but also your team. Clarify everybody's role so there's no ambiguity. Take a moment and look at everybody's role and make sure that you have the right people in the right seats. There's a whole teaching I've done on this, so I won't exhaust it. But man, there are different outcomes to having wrong person, wrong seat, wrong person, right seat, right person, wrong seat, and right person, right seat. There are different outcomes. They all give you something different. And so you need to identify and make sure you clarify the roles of where everybody fits. And that's a hard decision to make. That's not about how you feel. It's not about how much you like somebody. It's about their capacity, their chemistry, their character. It's about all those different things that fit within that. All right. So you got to clarify roles. And then last but not least, if you're going to make a shift, you got to clearly communicate that change. When you identify a specialist and a coach that can help you, you've got to make sure that you let everybody know that, hey, look, some things are changing. Because sometimes, let's be honest, as a pastor, you can burn out your goodwill with people. And the way you burn out your goodwill with people is by having so many false starts, start and stops, start something, don't follow through, don't finish. And so when you announce that, hey, I'm working with a coach, I'm working with a consultant, somebody who's helping me, helping hold me accountable, they're going to help our whole church. You're saying to your team, you're saying to your church, we're doing something different. And so we're going to expect a different result. I need y'all to support me. I recognize the places where I needed support, we needed support, and I found us support, right? And you lead into the change, right? So here's a question I want to ask you. I want you to answer this next question. If you could take one responsibility either off your plate as a pastor or off your pastor's plate, what would it be? If you're a senior leader, what's one thing you would take off your plate tomorrow if you could? If you're a support leader, what's one thing you would take off your pastor's plate if you could help them? Right? Not that you have to do it personally, but you would have them stop doing it so it's not wearing them out. Let me know in the chat. What's that one thing for you? All right. While you're answering that, I'm going to close out. I'm going to get ready to close out. Because as I can say, I was full on this episode. I had a lot to share because I thought it was really important to do so. So here's the final thing that I want to share, that I want to say, and I want to charge you with. If you as a pastor want to last, or if you as a support leader want to see your pastor last, then you got to let them lead. And in order for them to lead well, they cannot do everything. They just can't do everything. You can't do everything well. And so the church that's going to thrive in the next season, it's not going to be carried by one person. It's going to be carried by a team. And when you get a team, when you get a coach and consultant on your team, that coach and consultant helps you carry some of what you're carrying so you're not doing it alone. That's what they do. They help you carry some of it so that you're not doing it alone. All right, look at this. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 16 says, from him, the whole body, joined and held together by every supporting ligament, grows and builds itself up in love as each part does its work. Come on, hand. You can't be trying to do the work of the feet. Head, you can't be trying to do the work of the heart. right? Every piece has to do its part. Every piece has to do its part, right? Every piece has to do its part, and we have to lean into it. All right. So I'm going to get ready to close us in prayer. And I'm seeing what are some of the things y'all put down. Transportation, absolutely. Graphics and flyer, absolutely. All right. So here's my challenge to both of y'all, especially since I know both of y'all and y'all in the program. Here's my challenge to both of you is number one for transformation. I want you to put out a call. I want you to put out a call, just literally to your church, to the people in your church, text them individually, whatever it is, and say, hey, look, I need somebody to grab this for at least a couple of weeks and take this to just pick up this or pick up this person, pick up that person, whatever it is. That's one. I want you to grab it. Same thing with you, Pastor Pierce. I want you to reach out and I want you to say, hey, look, who's somebody who's willing to learn how to do Canva and how to edit Canva templates and how to do this so that we can take our social media to the next level, right? Ask, right? Go out there and ask and see what you can find, all right? Because here's what I want you to do. This is my last thing, and I'm going to say this and I'm going to pray. I want you to walk away tonight with one action that you can take to help lighten your load as a pastor or to help lighten your pastor's load. One action. Just one action. What's that one action? If you know what it is, drop it in the chat. All right. So before I pray, I want to say this to some of you out there, your pastors, you've been leading and you've been following our journey for a while. We've been walking with you for a while. And you're in a space where you really need some help and support. And you've been on the fence and you've been wrestling with it. I really want to challenge you tonight. Make the leap. Make the leap. Like take the step and say, hey, I want to get the support I need. I want to get the help I need to go where God is calling us to go and to do what God is calling us to do. We have, and I've been talking about this for a while, but we created a new program called Church Systems in a Box, and I'm super excited. I actually have the boxes in my office. I got all the stuff in my office. We're actually getting ready to actually start sending out literal physical boxes to people, to pastors and churches and all those kind of things like that. But I want you to take the leap. That new program that we just created is literally $197 a month. So literally less than the cost of a cup of coffee for that program. That's the entry-level program. But if you want some real help and you want us to come alongside you, we can do that too. And I promise you the program pays for itself, right? But you've got to take the leap. And sometimes it's a leap of faith and you come in working. I had one pastor who said, look, I'm coming in, I'm going to do this. He said, all I got enough is for these first couple. So I got to see some progress. I said, all right, if you come in to work, I'm ready to work. And he came in working and he ain't left yet. And that's been like 2 years ago now, right? It pays for itself, but you just got to take action. You got to take action. You got to take action. You got to come to a point within yourself that you say, I'm willing to take the step. I'm willing to take the step. All right. So let me pray for you and then I will close us out, man, and we will go. Father, I thank you so much for this night. I thank you that in your kingdom, everything has its place, that all of your people have its place. And I thank you that you brought us into a time and an era where we can recognize the unique apostolic gifts that you are raising up, the unique prophetic, evangelistic, and pastoral and teaching gifts that you have raised up. And I just pray, God, that you would just continue to take those gifts that are helpful, that you have ordained for the body of Christ, and that you would continue to thrust them into the forefront, that those who are in need of help might find it. I thank you that you are raising up these apostolic doctors and nurses who are specialized in specific areas. I pray that you would continue to raise up spiritual cardiologists who come in and breathe new life into the hearts of leaders who are tired and broken down. I pray that you would raise up spiritual brain surgeons who come in and help rewire the thinking of leaders who have been disappointed and frustrated time and time again. I pray that you would raise up apostolic and prophetic optometrists who come in and invest in the vision of your leaders and help them to get their vision back again and get their excitement and their joy back again so that they can go forward. I pray that you will raise up spiritual podiatrists so that they could come in and restore movement and bring health back to the movement of the church, to the feet of the church, that we might go forward and that we might step into what you have called us to do. Raise up spiritual ENTs so that we might get our discernment back, so that we have, again, the ability to discern your will for us and discern where you want us to go. God, raise up spiritual ENTs so that we might hear more clearly, so that they might help remove the wax from our ears, that we might hear your voice again. I pray that you will continue to raise up leaders and gifts who help us be like the sons of Issachar, that we might discern the times. Raise up spiritual social media strategists. Raise up spiritual technologists. Raise up solutionists in every realm, that the kingdom might continue to invade the 7 mountains of our culture for your glory. And I pray, Lord, that you would give our leaders courage. Give them the courage to pursue help. I sense, and I'm hearing just those 4 lepers who were stuck outside the city. And eventually they came to a point where they said, shall we sit here and die? We either going to go back in the city, but the city is locked up. They're not letting us in. The worst we can do is go out here and fight this army and just see what happens. If they kill us, we was going to die anyway, but who knows? And they go out to discover that, God, the thing that they were worried about, you had already worked it out. And they discovered that the thing that they were afraid of turned out to be one of the best blessings they ever discovered. I pray that you would give your leaders that kind of courage to get the help they need wherever it is, whoever it is. Give them the courage to pursue it and to do it with the full force of your glory behind them. God, our church needs you. Our churches need you. God, we need you bad. God, I'm concerned that so many of our churches won't make it to the next 12 months. They won't make it to the next season. So many of our pastors won't make it through another cycle. So many of our churches are one sickness away, one funeral away, challenge away. And Lord, I'm just praying that you would just come in and that you would give our leaders the wisdom and the courage. Put courage back in our leaders again, where they're not afraid to take holy risks to do what you've called them to do and go where you've called them to go. Father, I plead on behalf of your church. Specifically, I plead on behalf of the African-American church. God, we tend to feel things faster and more deeply than other people groups. And as our nation goes through so much turmoil and uncertainty, as our economy goes through so much uncertainty, I pray that you would give us the courage to act while we can before it's too late. Father, I plead on behalf of not only our churches, but our pastors. Give them strength and courage to lead well. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Listen, I can't tell y'all how much I love and appreciate each and every one of you. Just know I'm praying for you. I'm lifting you up, and I'm praying and asking the Lord to meet you where you are and to be everything you need in the season that you are in. And so I encourage you to take the steps to get where God has called you to be. All right, listen, thank y'all so much for being here. Love y'all. On your way out, share this with somebody who needs it. Send it to your team, send it to your people, send it to somebody so that they can get a hold of it. And I will look forward to seeing you back again, same place next Tuesday as we get ready for shift number 7. We're going to talk about the last one, and I believe God's going to do some great things. All right. Love y'all. God bless. See you soon.